everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Once Upon a Murder. I know I've been gone for super long and I'm sure I've been missed. My store recently opened back up, so I had to start working again, and school was really kicking my butt, so I had to, as an adult, set priorities, unfortunately. Anyway. So on today's episode, I want to talk about the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. Dee Dee Blanchard was born as Claudine Peter in 1967. She was raised in Louisiana near the Gulf Coast. When she was 24 years old, she got pregnant by a boy who was 17 years old, and his name was Rod Blanchard. But shortly before Gypsy's birth, Rod and Dee Dee had separated. So they got married because she got pregnant, and Rod states that one day he woke up and realized he did it for the wrong reasons and he didn't really want to be with her. So they were separated by the time of Gypsy's birth. In July of 1991, Claudine, or Dee Dee, gave birth to Gypsy Rose. When Gypsy was 3 months of age, Dee Dee was convinced that she had sleep apnea, and she took her to the hospital many times, and there was no actual signs of sleep apnea, but Dee Dee felt that she had mother's intuition, basically diagnosed herself with sleep apnea. Probably from that point on is when Dee Dee started noticing all of Gypsy's different defects. I mean, there's just a long list of different illnesses and diseases that Gypsy was believed to have had. When Gypsy was about 7 or 8 years old, she was riding on her grandfather's motorcycle and she had fallen off the back, and she had like a scraped knee. But Dee Dee, knowing all of Gypsy's different illnesses, knew that this was something that would require many surgeries and take a really long time to heal, and Gypsy was actually put into a wheelchair from that point after. So because of all of her illnesses and diseases, Dee Dee took Gypsy out of school somewhere from kindergarten or second grade. In between that time, she took her out and decided that she was going to homeschool her herself. Because of Gypsy's medical conditions, they also got public assistance. Sometime after Dee Dee decided to homeschool Gypsy, the two of them actually had moved away further from their family to live in public housing. Some of these conditions, included different vision impairments, hearing impairments. She was confined to a wheelchair. She had a lot of seizures. And then when Hurricane Katrina hit, all of their medical papers and birth certificates were actually ruined in the hurricane, or lost at least. In around 2007, sometime after Katrina, they decided to move to Missouri because they had won Gypsy had been honored for some sort of award because of her illnesses. I believe it was something about tube feeding. She was a tube feeding award recipient, I don't know. In 2008, Habitat for Humanity had built a house for them in Springfield, Missouri, and so they moved over there. They were originally in Aurora, and they had a whole house built for them with a wheelchair ramp, a hot tub, among many other things. Because of this whole single mother with a disabled daughter, they gained a lot of public attention, at least from their local media. Everybody knew them, and their whole community really put in an effort to just always be helping the two of them out. Because of Gypsy's illnesses, they did end up getting a lot of different, special treatments, I guess. They had free flights to go see different medical doctors. They had free trips to Walt Disney World. Oh, they got backstage passes to see Miranda Lambert, and there are some photos of them together, as well as, on top of everything, Dee Dee was still receiving child support money from Rod every month. However, Dee Dee told everybody around her that Rod was an abusive, alcoholic, drug addict father who could never come to terms with Gypsy's conditions, and he just wasn't around, which definitely gained her a lot more sympathy. Rod states, and his second wife after Dee Dee, that they were always trying to come and visit, but last minute Dee Dee would change plans or cancel them or just say that Gypsy wasn't up for it. So around 2012, Gypsy, when her mother had gone to bed, was actually on the internet, and on a Christian dating site, she started talking to Nicholas Godejohn. They started talking and eventually started dating, and their conversations, as Gypsy put it, got to be a little bit uncomfortable for her. He liked to talk about like BDSM, and that's just something that she said she wasn't really ready for. However, she said that because she was so in love, she kind of just went with it. So Gypsy wanted to arrange a way for her mother to meet Nicholas, without, putting it out there that she had snuck online and talked to him and met him. And because there was really no other way for her to meet him without her mother being there, because she went everywhere with her mother, they sort of arranged this plan to bump into each other while watching the live action Cinderella movie at the movie theater. And he actually lived farther away, so he had to scrape up some money for a Greyhound bus and come down to Springfield. So they met up at the movie theater, and Gypsy's plan kind of backfired because her mother thought this guy was really creepy because he came to the movie theater all by himself to watch a children's movie, which, like, I like Cinderella. I don't really think it's a children's movie. It was live action. I don't know. But yeah, I could see how that could be kind of creepy when it's a guy all by himself at the movie theater watching Cinderella. So basically she thought he was really weird. So the plan kind of backfired because Gypsy's mom did not like him. So that night when Dee Dee decided that she hated Nicholas when they met, that's kind of when Nicholas and Gypsy had started talking about a plan to kill her mother. So in June of 2015, Nicholas again had come down on a Greyhound bus to see Gypsy. So Gypsy allegedly left out for him some duct tape, gloves, and a knife so that Nicholas was able to murder her mother in her sleep. However, Gypsy says that although she admits to leaving these things out, that she never thought he would actually go through with it, and that she really didn't expect him to kill her mother. So Gypsy says that even though her ears were covered, she heard her mother wake up. She heard her call her name, she heard her scream, and then she heard her go quiet. Nicholas had stabbed Dee Dee many times until she was dead. They stole about $4,000 in cash that Dee Dee had in the house, and they took the murder weapon and they shipped them both to Nicholas's house, so that the police wouldn't find it. So Gypsy urged Nicholas to write some sort of Facebook post on her mother's Facebook that would alarm people or alert them, to go check her house. So this is the post that Nicholas ended up writing. The first post read, "That bitch is dead." 17 minutes later, there was a comment on Dee Dee's account still, and it said, so then the police were obviously alerted. They went to the house, they found Dee Dee dead, and then they worried about her daughter, who was so sick, in a wheelchair, couldn't walk. They found her oxygen tanks and her tubes to feed herself, and what they assumed was that there had been a murderer come in, they kidnapped Gypsy, and so now Gypsy was considered to be a missing persons. Ultimately, there was just further investigation done, and then they found the messages, and they put two and two together that Gypsy Rose and Nicholas Godejohn had made this plan together to kill Dee Dee Blanchard. Professionals came to the conclusion that Dee Dee Blanchard had suffered Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which basically is this necessity to feel sympathy from other people. So for all these years, Dee Dee had forced Gypsy to be in a wheelchair even though she could walk perfectly well. She told her that she had all these different illnesses. She put her through so many surgeries, and she made her take all these medications that she ultimately didn't need. If anything, they gave the symptoms of what the doctors were trying to cure. They gave it to Gypsy. Ultimately, just having a child, I mean, she just used it. It was like the ultimate manipulation. She used it to get money, and to just commit fraud in this huge way. She got free flights, trips to Disney World, a free house, when her daughter was perfectly healthy. So Gypsy Rose, her whole life was forced, and really believed that she had these conditions: epilepsy, vision impairment, hearing impairment, GI reflux, quadriplegia, muscular dystrophy, anemia, hypoventilation, asthma, allergies, leukemia, incontinence, lung disease, and heart murmurs. Growing up in that environment, first of all, how do you know differently? How do you question your mother on these things? She says that the only thing she knew that was a little off was that she could walk. And what blows my mind is that there are doctors out there who did tests and did surgeries and did so many things and knew that, like, hey, we're not finding anything wrong, but nobody said anything, so nobody really came to help Gypsy. And then she kind of just took matters into her own hands. So for years, the birth certificate that had been lost in Hurricane Katrina, Dee Dee had made up another one and made Gypsy like 4 to 5 years younger than she actually was. She told her father one day when he called on her 18th birthday, she said, hey, don't tell her that she's 18, because she thinks she's 14. And she blames this all on Gypsy's brain, being stuck at the age of a 15, 14-year-old for the rest of her life. In her appearance, she was shorter. Her mother would shave her head to give off the appearance of chemotherapy, and told Gypsy, you know what, sweetie, like, it's all gonna fall out anyway, it's better this way. When she was perfectly capable of growing a full head of hair. And so it was just this psychological and physical abuse. In videos and pictures and everywhere they went, you can see that Dee Dee is holding Gypsy Rose's hand. And Gypsy said that if she said something wrong, her mother would just tightly squeeze her hand, and that's when she knew to shut up. And it's just a whole form of manipulation. There's actually this HBO documentary called Mommy, Dead, and Dearest, and I just watched it last night, and it's really good. So if you are more interested in it, that kind of dives a little bit deeper. On one of the nights where Gypsy tried to escape, like she had walked over to her neighbor's house, and her mother found her, she had snuck out and gone somewhere with a guy, and her mother found her 4 hours later, and she brought her back home, and she smashed the computer and the keyboards with a hammer, and told her that if she ever tried it again, she would smash her fingers with a hammer. So ultimately, I think there are other options than murder, but it was, she was pushed into a corner, and there was some legal action done that said, Gypsy was not capable of being her own person, and so if she did go to the police, Gypsy was afraid that, they would see, oh, she's not, capable of being on her own, we have to call her mother. If Gypsy said something wrong in front of people, as soon as they were alone, Dee Dee would hit her with her open hand, or she said in a few instances with a coat hanger. She also gave her oral anesthetic so that it would seem before one of the doctor's appointments, because Dee Dee had complained that Gypsy had been salivating a lot, and so they went through an operation to take out her saliva glands. After her death, Dee Dee's family had a lot to say about her, and I don't think any of it was positive. They believed that she was responsible for her own mother's death. In 1997, she had lived with her and she wasn't feeding her. So Dee Dee would not give her food, and ultimately her family is pretty sure that is what led to her death. And so, basically Dee Dee committed murder herself. A few years after her mother's death, her stepmother and her father believed that they were poisoning her stepmother as well, that Dee Dee had been feeding her like weed killer, some sort of spray, and it left her in bed for a few weeks, and her father said that he didn't think that she would make it, so they thought she was responsible for that as well. Her family did not want to have a funeral for her. She was cremated, and they fought because nobody wanted her ashes. And so naturally, her father and everyone was just like, just flush it down the toilet. And so they flushed Dee Dee Blanchard's ashes down the toilet. Nicholas was sentenced to life in prison, though I think there's another hearing or something coming up February 2019. And Gypsy was sentenced to 10 years in jail. You know, some people are really happy with it, and some people think that she didn't deserve that. Besides all the abuse that she got at the time of the actual murder, you have to think too about how many medications she must have been on. And what psychologically, what trauma she was suffering from. And other people say, you know, like, she's the daughter and she's grown up and she knows nothing but manipulation. So, you know, maybe Gypsy is just manipulating everybody too. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Once Upon a Murder with me. I'm back and I really want to post Murder Mondays again. I plan to. Like this video, subscribe, watch my other videos. I hope you enjoyed. If you want a murder to be talked about, or kidnapping, disappearance, whatever, conspiracy theories, I'm all for it. Let me know. I love getting your opinions and suggestions. Yeah, so join me next week for a Murder Monday next week.